Hi, this is Scott Bahlavooni, and welcome to PhUSE Webinar Wednesday for April 2019. I really want to thank you for taking some time out of your busy day to spend some time with PhUSE. We have a really great agenda today. It's really focused on the Computational Science Symposium, or CSS, which is coming up in June, so not too far away. So Lilliam Rosario is going to give us an overview and her perspective on the CSS, and then we're going to hear from the folks that are going to be leading some of the workshops at the CSS. We have nearly 200 people registered for the meeting at the moment, so we would encourage you that if you're thinking about attending the CSS to register as soon as possible. We have space for approximately 250 to 270 people, so there's not a lot of room left, so don't wait until the last minute to sign up. So I'm going to try to go through this very quickly and get out of the way so we can get to the meat of our presentation today and really give you some information on the CSS. So before we do that, I just want to mention that again, we have the conference coming up here in June. We have a really great agenda for you, which is posted online. The discounted rates for hotels for the CSS ends very shortly. So again, if you are thinking about attending the meeting in lovely Silver Spring, Maryland, now is the time to register. Don't wait too much longer. We also have registration open for our EU Connect event. The call for papers closes on the 26th, and the early bird registration itself closes in July. And we are already taking or planning our 2020 US Connect event. The registration will open in July, as well as the call for papers. So a lot going on here in terms of events coming up for PhUSE. So again, we encourage you to visit the PhUSE website, check out all of the events that we do have going on and the timelines for those events. We have some single day events that are being planned globally as well. So again, another opportunity for you to interact and network with your colleagues, as well as to be able to glean some very useful information. Just a really quick update on some of the activities happening around the working groups. One of the projects in the Optimizing the Use of Data Standards working group that was looking at define.xml and contrasting that with the Study Data Reviewers Guide. They have published a white paper for some best practices for collating information that is provided to regulators as part of a submission. We have our working groups themselves that are actively getting prepped for the CSS. Like I said, it's just over a month away, so we are getting the agenda finalized, and again, a lot of activities will be occurring at the meeting. We do have several projects that are calling for volunteers and several others that are looking for project leads. If you visit the PhUSE website, www.phuse.eu, you can get a better understanding of what some of the project needs are. If you've not participated in a PhUSE working group project before, this is a great opportunity for you to get engaged with the working groups. I do want to mention that our next webinar is scheduled in May. That webinar will focus on a little bit more granular level, some of the activities that will be going on at the CSS, and we will also have a special announcement from one of our colleagues at the FDA regarding a seminar they are hosting after the CSS. So again, we would encourage you that the spots for the CSS are selling quickly, that if you are interested in attending the meeting, now is the time to register for the event. So I do want to now hand the presentation over to Lilliam Rosario from the FDA, who will be giving us an overview of the CSS. So I do believe Lilliam is online.
Yes, good morning. This is Lilliam Rosario. from the Office of Computational Science in the Center for Drug Research, Evaluation and Research. And I'm very excited. CSS is finally coming again. It's later this year, but better late than never. And it's my favorite time of the year because I not only get to see very many friends, I also always feel the excitement and the strength that comes out from collaboration. So I am excited that this is finally happening again. So we've been working together now for, it's going to be 8 years. And there's been a monumental amount of progress in those last 8 years. Whether this is your first or your third or your fifth, or you're going to be a new member joining the CSS, I definitely consider this as a treat. In this meeting, the expectation is that you really roll up your sleeves, that you make direct contributions to support industry, government, science, and technology overall. The CSS really is defined by actions and collaboration. And if you're looking for an opportunity to bring those ideas and see them flourish, if you want to rally around a particular theme, whether that's around technology, standards, processes, new products, this is the place to do it. This is where you'll make connections and establish relationships. And I can say that a lot of those connections and relationships are for a lifetime. The CSS is a co-sponsored collaboration with the FDA. And here is where we share CEDAR's vision, policies, current thinking, and ideas. And we come in as contributors. Everybody comes in as an individual contributor to provide their best judgment on an issue, and then we work around it. So we provide that particular expertise, but it's not a place for policy. It's a place for work, for collaboration, for bringing people together. So there are right now a lot of opportunities to contribute and make a mark. There's many different work groups that cater to a lot of different interests. I know that in my group, in the Office of Computational Science, we are heavily vested in a lot of them, and definitely keep abreast of everything that is going on in the collaborations. The opportunities for us have come around the optimizing the use of data standards, and we've been very active in there and find that those collaborations are incredibly illuminating to understand what sponsors and users of the regulatory process need and want, and also for us to share some of our challenges and limitations. We are definitely very active, and this is one of my very favorite working groups on the non-clinical topics. Lots of progress in there, really making a difference in the way that we're able to use the study data and be able to contribute to the regulatory process using some of the all of the activities that have been put together in that working group. So the standards analysis and code sharing working group is also very active. We've contributed scripts to that particular working group. We also have contributed to the thought process that has been collected and shared in that space. I am always very excited to see all the work that is going on in the Emerging Technologies Working Group. They have really created an open, transparent environment that provides a lot of new opportunities. Some of them have been around semantic web applications. I know that there's work on artificial intelligence, machine learning, modeling, the cloud expertise was also started in there. And the Educate in the Future is also one that is up and going and very exciting, creating resources for the community to understand some of those new technologies that are coming on, or aspects that we want to consider as we move forward. So this is a really brief overview, particularly wanting to share my own personal excitement around this activity, the set of collaborations that happen in the CSS, but also to highlight some of the ways in which we are definitely vested, involved, and included in working hard to move these working groups forward. And to say that the meeting itself is a yearly event, but the work is a forever type of deal. So we meet yearly, but we work throughout the year. And I think that's what makes this type of collaboration successful, is that it continues the momentum, it continues to create, it continues to evolve. So if you are looking for an opportunity to contribute, if you are looking for an opportunity to be excited, definitely this is the place to be. And I look forward to another set of experiences this year. Thank you.
Thank you, Lilliam. We're now going to hand over to Nhi, who's going to discuss the Safety Analytics Workshop.
Hi, my name is Nhi Beasley. I am Associate Director of Biomedical Informatics in the Division of Cardiovascular and Renal Products at the FDA. I have worked with PhUSE for about 4 to 5 years now. I am the FDA liaison for the Analysis and Displays White Paper project team, which is the project team leading the Safety Analytics Workshop. So I'm just going to give a brief overview of the Safety Analytics Workshop. Next slide, thanks. So the Safety Analytics Workshop will be on Sunday, June 9th in the evening, and the facilitator will be Mary Nilsson. She is a research advisor in safety analytics for Eli Lilly. She is the standard analysis and code sharing co-lead with Hanming 2. So the other half of the analysis and displays, the analysis and code sharing working group consists of code developers, and that's led by Hanming. She is the project lead for the analysis and displays white papers. Next slide. Okay, so to understand the goals of the workshop, it helps to have an understanding of the analysis and display white paper project team, which I will refer to as ADW for the remainder of this presentation. So as I already mentioned, our project team is part of the standard analysis and code sharing working group. What we do is develop white papers that recommend specific tables, figures, and listings for clinical trial study reports and submission documents. And the intent here is to begin the process of developing industry standards with respect to analyses and reporting of measurements that are common across clinical trials and across therapeutic areas. Next slide. This figure shows the clinical data flow and the industry standards that align with various stages of clinical data, and highlights to the right there where our project team's focus is. So for example, for the data collection systems, there's CDASH. For observed data sets, there's SDTM. For analysis data sets, there's ADAM. But for tables, figures, and listings, there are no standards. So our project is focusing on this particular aspect of clinical trials. Next slide. So our goal is to improve the expertise in safety analytics across multiple disciplines. The people that are involved with the planning, interpreting, and reporting of safety analyses. And our hope is that this will promote good analytical practices and avoid poor practices. So the papers define recommended tables, figures, and listings, and the hope is that reviewers, both in industry and in regulatory agencies, will receive more clinically relevant and meaningful analyses for benefit risk assessment, and that this will lead to more efficient review. Next slide. So this shows the white papers that we have finished so far. All of the final white papers are located on the PhUSE website under Working Group Deliverables Catalog. So you can see to the right there, we have completed an adverse event white paper, vital signs labs and ECGs, both a central tendency and an outlier shift paper. We've completed and updated the demographics, disposition, and medication white paper. There is a non-compartmental PK paper and a QT/QTC paper. Next slide. This slide shows our planned deliverables. And if any of these are of interest to you, please reach out to myself or Mary and participate in our working group meetings. So the ones that we are, So the ones we're planning for this year, you can see there are safety topics of interest, an update to the labs and vitals, questionnaires, hepatotoxicity, treatment emergent definitions, interactive displays, and ECGs for next year. Next slide. So the goals of the workshop are the goals of the ADW project team with a focus on clinical trial safety. We intend to discuss the recommended tables and figures at the workshop and the focus on adverse events in labs. We will be talking about the rationale for why particular tables and figures are recommended and expand on interpretation of the tables and figures. We will also share some common pitfalls and cover some frequently asked questions. Next slide. So this slide shows the focus of the workshop, which will be on these 3 final white papers: the vital sign, ECG, and lab paper on central tendency, the vital sign and ECG and lab paper on outliers, and the adverse event white paper. Next slide. This slide just it just highlights some of the FAQs and pitfalls that will be discussed at the workshop. Why wouldn't you add 30 days to the treatment period? Why would anyone include p-values for safety? Why do we count patients with events instead of number of events? And also some common pitfalls using group means to assess persistent patterns, planning for all safety analyses by period for all periods of a study. Next slide. So the audience that we think would be interested in this workshop are those involved with clinical trial safety, people involved with analysis planning, table figure programming, interpreting the results, and writing study reports and submissions. So for regulatory agencies, that would include clinical and statistical reviewers. In industry, we think that would include medical people, medical writers, regulatory scientists, statisticians, as well as programmers and software developers. And that concludes my presentation.
Very much, and I'm going to talk to you today about the hands-on workshop, Let's Make a Knowledge Graph. So I will be your instructor for the evening session. My name is Tim Williams. I'm a statistical solutions lead at UCB Biosciences, and I'm also the project co-lead for growing translational with linked data. And I will mention that project a little bit later as well. This workshop will take place on the Sunday evening after some of the opening sessions have occurred from 7 to 9 p.m. So we should probably first cover what is a knowledge graph. At its very basic definition, it is a way to interconnect information in a network of data using meaningful relationships that are understandable by both people and computers. Of course, there's a lot more to it than that. There's integrated metadata, and rules, and inferencing, and all kinds of fun stuff. but at its basic level, that's what a knowledge graph is. I contend that knowledge graphs should be fair. If you haven't heard of FAIR data, you'll be hearing a lot more about it in the next year or so. It's really taking off in our industry, and it stands for findable, accessible, interoperable, and reusable data and data models. FAIR data and knowledge graphs are built on linked data. Well, what is linked data? I'm so glad you asked. This is an example of some of the linked data, the types of values and relationships that you will create during the hands-on workshop. So you can see that there are not just values, but meaningful relationships tie them together in these semantic web of data, if you will. This is an example of a knowledge graph, a graph of data that was created at one of our recent workshops, and this is the type of thing that you will be creating as well. Each attendee will have a whiteboard application through a browser, so it's all on the web. You get your own server that you will log into and create your own individual study, where you will assign human study subjects to various treatments, add demographics information, and a little bit of a hint here on this diagram. You'll also link out to places like clinicaltrials.gov to find more information about your study, or DBpedia to find more information about the drug that's used in the study that you create. So I hinted at that in the previous slide. What I wanted to show here is that you seamlessly reach out from the graph that you create over to clinicaltrials.gov, because you're using the same unique identifier for your trial, and then you can see or bring in all of the information that clinicaltrials.gov has about your study. Similarly, you can look up information about your drug, in this case looking at DBpedia, or things, various information about that drug. You could also link out to other places like Drug Bank or PubChem, or publications, things like PubMed's available. But for our purposes, this is what we will be doing. It's very easy to do this. It's just a query that you execute in the environment that brings this data together as if by magic. We will also be bringing together a data pool of all of these attendees' studies. So each attendee makes their own study, and at the very end, we will create this pool of data that brings in 20-some studies virtually in the blink of an eye. So a single simple query brings all that data together. And if you've ever tried to pool study data where you are, you realize how difficult that can be sometimes. And this really highlights the utility of linked data and the ease with which you can bring data together, not just from clinicaltrials.gov or DBpedia, but your own study information for a particular product. We assume no previous knowledge or experience with linked data. So just come with your experience of clinical trials or an interest in learning something. That's all you need. Registration is limited, so we ask that you do pre-register. And we also ask that you will attend a pre-conference webinar. The primary purpose of this is to test that your laptop is able to log into the servers that we will be using during the session. A lot of our laptops in the pharmaceutical area are pretty locked down, so we want to make sure that you can use remote desktop to come onto the cloud and use our server there, and it will make for a much better experience during those 2 hours on Sunday evening. During the prep webinar, I'll give you a bit more overview of what we will do in the workshop and provide you with some optional background reading if you are interested in learning a little bit more about linked data before you arrive. It's completely optional. And then when you arrive at the conference, don't forget to bring that same laptop with you that you tested during the pre-conference preparations. I wanted to also mention the project that I co-lead with two other co-leads called Going Translational with Linked Data. We will be having some breakout sessions during the CSS, and we are extending a previous project called Clinical Trials Data as RDF, which was looking at SDTM domains. In this new project, we are extending that work to more SDTM domains, but also bringing in the preclinical modeling and data conversion. So we'd ask that if you have some experience with the preclinical domain and SEND, do please attend our breakout sessions. No knowledge of linked data is necessary, and you need not have attended the workshop either. We were going to do a very interactive breakout session led by one of our co-leads, Drashti Basant from Bayer. And we're going to whiteboard out on actual physical whiteboards some of the concepts within a send domain or two and see how those things relate. And then we'll do some of the geeky stuff on the back end for you and create some linked data from that. So I think this is an exciting extension of our project, and we welcome your expertise to come in and help us build out these data models and data conversion steps. So if you have any questions about the session, please feel free to contact me. This is my PhUSE email address, and I look forward to seeing you at the CSS. Thank you.
Lauren, can you see my screen?
Yep, if you could put it in presenter mode, that would be great. Thanks, Kevin.
Now, can you see the presenting mode?
I think you might need to go onto the other screen.
Okay, I'm not sure that I could do that. Yeah, I'm not sure whether I could do that or not for that one. Hold on a second. Yeah, you only show about this way at this moment.
If you go into display settings, does that help? Don't worry, Kevin. That's fine. We can make out what's on the screen.
Okay. Sorry about that. Okay. So welcome to our 2019 PhUSE CSS Virtual Learning Workshop, the webinar. And we're going to talk about, actually, we're going to start with machine learning introductions. So a lot of times that we see a lot of machine learning implementation in our industry. So the question is, what is a machine learning? The machine learning is basically the AI that the system is able to learn and improve automatically without being explicit programs. And then the reason that the machine is very popular nowadays is, first of all, it is very innovative. It could solve a lot of the complex business problems that wasn't able to solve before. And it provides a lot of new opportunity for a lot of business. And at the same time, it actually cost effective. Andrew Ng is the founder of the Coursera, and he was the main brain in the Google. And he used to be the chief data scientist. And right now he's running that. He's running the machine learning AI mutual fund, who actually build a lot of machine learning capability or industry. And he pretty much mentioned that pretty much anything that normal person could do or think within 1 second, we could now automate with the AI. So the machine learning will automate a lot of work, and also it could have a possibility to replace or enhance human labors. And another thing is that a lot of time, machine learning could be more accurate than human being as well too. So if you look at the application of machine learning in our daily lives, as you see that you could kind of, there is a voice assistant such as Siri or Alexa, and there's a chatbot implementation, and also recommendation by kind of Netflix or Google. And also last year that we saw that Google Help, that really gonna do a lot of mundane work or by just calling out to Google. And then Amazon also opened the store, which is the Go Store. It is actually cashierless, the store. You could log in. I mean, you could pass. You could scan your iPhone, and then you could go and pick up that items in the store, and you could just walk out. So there's no line in cashier. And then the funny thing is, there's actually a big line to the outside to get into the stores. So now the PhUSE actually start machine learning project team actually about a year ago. And then actually now we have about 80 members, and then we are growing really, really fast. And the reason is that because we have very strong leadership in our sub-team lead, and also a lot of support and from each members. And if we have actually three sub-teams. The first team is machine implementation in pharmaceutical industry. And also this team is actually understand about how machine learning implemented in other industry and implement into our pharma industries. And then we also have a publication team who is responsible for that any kind of PhUSE publications or presentations and white papers. And we also have the actual machine learning project teams. Under machine learning project team, we actually have a couple projects we are going at this moment: STTM development using AI and machine learning, and also chatbot development. And we're also looking at about other projects such as the medical coding and also STTM annotation from CFR. The goal of the PhUSE machine learning AI team is pretty simple. We want to raise awareness in machine learning in pharma industry. Right now, pharma is a little bit behind compared to other industries, so we want to raise the awareness in the machine learning in pharma companies, and also by looking at and also explore and learn about machine learning implementation in other industry, and also implement that into pharma industry. And we're also going to conduct some projects and develop that model that's specific to pharma industry, and by collaborating across pharma company for machine implementations. So we actually have a big plan for 2019 PhUSE CSS. We do have a couple breakouts, and we're going to talk about machine learning introductions and current implementations in pharma, and also future implementations. And we also talk about our current projects such as STTM development and also the chatbot development. We also have a poster. And then lastly, we do have a workshop for programmer on Monday, June 10, 6:30 to 8:30, right after posters. So what we're going to talk about in the workshop is, first of all, we're going to talk about the project workflow, how machine learning project gets done, such as starting with the identify, problem to solve, and collect the data, and review the data, and then prepare the data, such as training data and the validation data. And then you do feature engineering, and then select the algorithms, whether it's going to be logistic regressions or support vector machine or deep learning, and then train the select algorithms with the training data, and then evaluate the training model with the validation data, and then predict with the training model. We're going to tackle this computer image visions. It is actually one of the most popular machine learning implementations, right next to natural language processing. And then usually it solves the image classification, and it could also apply to X-ray diagnosis and face recognition and face verification and object detection and autonomous vehicle. Actually, we will cover this portion in the workshops. And then in the workshop, we're going to introduce about machine learning ecosystems, such as Python programming and GitHub. So our code and programming going to be uploaded to GitHub, and then we will download that programming from GitHub to our laptops. And then we're going to use the Python programming to do simple machine learning projects. And then the algorithm that you're gonna use is logistic regressions and support vector machine and deep learning. And if it's possible, we could also do convolutional neural network as well too. And we're also gonna use one of the most popular machine learning package, such as scikit-learn and TensorFlow and Kara, that we're gonna use in our workshops, so that people understand how some of the machine learning projects gonna use in terms of the code and then the machine learning packages. we encourage people bring the laptop because it's going to be hands-on, and also it will be interactive. We will talk and we will actually going to show how that some of the machine learning projects going to get done by programming and also the machine learning algorithm. So bring your laptop and then be ready to talk and be ready to ask us any questions during the workshop. We have actually 3 instructors, myself and Sarang Koti from Johnson & Johnson, and Sam Tomoika from the Snowvion. They are very hands-on programmers who knows about machine learning, who will help you to understand and at the same time do the workshop together. Once again, thank you. And then if you have any questions about that machine learning workshop or any machine learning projects, please contact me or let Lilliam know that she actually going to provide information for the workshop and also machine learning project team.
Thank you, Kevin. Over to
Excellent.
Ian.
Okay, great. Thanks.
All right, can you hear me and see my screen?
Yes, we can, Ian.
Excellent. I'm going to go full screen. Okay, so I'm going to talk a little bit about the workshop that we're actually going to be running at the CSS on Sunday evening after the opening session. So I run the Educating for the Future working group with Jim McDermott. Jim unfortunately couldn't be here today because he's driving across the U.S. with his son, and he couldn't take the webinar from the road, so to speak. So I'll talk a little bit about what we're planning to do. So we're actually going to be doing a running session throughout the entire CSS, and this is actually just the first session of it. Really what it is, it's a community engagement focus group. If you don't know about the Educating for the Future working group, our remit or our, what we want to do is we actually want to focus on areas where we actually think that other industries or other, in the common technical space, we have gaps with a lot of those different areas. So things like some of the projects that we currently have are design thinking, data engineering, and data science. We are currently planning for having a 4th project, which is going to be agile methods, which is going to be run hopefully by Ferial from Boehringer Ingelheim. And so we actually have a couple of projects that are currently ongoing, and we want to actually engage the community to figure out how exactly we can most effectively communicate, most effectively actually convey some of these ideas and some of these things to the community in a way that will resonate with them, and they can actually take that home and utilize it in their day-to-day work. So the goal for the workshop is really just around information gathering. Since we have those 4 projects that are either currently in process or soon to be in process, we actually, for the workshop, what we really want to do is we just want to gather information from the community to find out what people are interested in, how they learn. But it also helps us because it actually helps us better understand the types of personas, the types of people who are actually interested in some of these things and the ways that they learn. We want to know from a working perspective about what we are doing that is working, what we can do better. For example, if no one has heard of our working group, that's something we can do better because we need to get working with the PhUSE home office and a few others to make sure that we're properly socializing all the stuff that we're doing and all the opportunities that we're trying to put out into the space. Another thing for us as a team, and this is actually all the people in the working group have the opportunity to actually participate in the workshop on Sunday night as interviewers. And then there are interviewees who are the people who are going to be coming in from the community. So the working group, the chance that it provides for them is really an exercise in building empathy. Empathy is a word that you hear a lot nowadays, but it's not something you just have automatically. It's something it's like a muscle that you need to exercise. And so in terms of like asking open-ended questions and just very non-judgmentally listening to responses and what people give back to you is actually an exercise in having to build empathy. And so we're going to be doing that with some of the team members to help them kind of stretch that muscle and learn a little bit how to be a little bit more empathetic with some of the users that we're trying to serve here. as well as helping them actually learn about different methods of doing interviews and getting feedback and trying to process that and synthesize it into something, some kind of a solution, which is what we're going to be working towards for the rest of the session on Monday and Tuesday. So the design thinking process in general, we're kind of following this across the entire working group. Even though design thinking is one of our projects, we're actually using this methodology on the working group level to help us better understand our users and to come up with some prototypes around education for some of these topics. So the empathize section is the first step. This is actually a process that comes out of the Stanford D School. It's a 5-step process where you empathize with the end users and the people you're trying to solve the problem for. You define exactly what the problem is, you ideate on how to solve that problem, you prototype something, and then you test it with end users to make sure that whatever you've come up with is actually something that helps them actually solve the problem that they have. So the workshop is really the first part, which is empathizing, which is just engaging with the community, finding out what people think about what we're doing and some of the topics that we're covering and how exactly can we do a better job of conveying some of that information and pushing forward some of the content that we're putting together. And then for the rest of the time, we're actually going to be defining a problem statement, probably for some of Sunday night. And then on Monday and Tuesday, we're actually going to be ideating some solutions and creating a couple of prototypes. And then at the end session, we're actually going to take some of the prototypes that we built and present those in the end session and let people let us know what they think. So that'll be the testing. So I think the goal across these 2 days is really to kind of go through these whole 5 steps of the design thinking process that would allow the people on the team to get experience with working with these 5-step processes, understand some of the methodologies that are involved in each of the different steps. And then, hopefully when we get that feedback after the CSS is over, we would have some ability to kind of iterate and create some new things. So it's just like a focus group on Sunday night. We still haven't decided on the format. I think it probably depends on how many people show up. If we have, a one-to-one type of scenario where we have as many working group members as we have attendees, we'll probably do a one-on-one kind of interview thing where we'll have a set of questions that we'll actually ask each person who comes in about what they want to do and understand that by coming to the working group, you're actually engaging in both helping us learn, but also, being a little bit of a guinea pig for some of the people who are conducting the interviews because they're going to be learning how to conduct interviews at the same time. But I would say don't be afraid. It's all about being fun, and I think we can probably arrange to have like some beer and pizza and food and snacks and stuff like there. So if that's something that's enticing to you, maybe we can make that happen. But if we have more people than we have working group members attending, then we may actually just shift to like a focus group type of thing where we actually have a number of people who are attending and then 1 or 2 working group members, and we'll ask questions to the group, and then we'll ask and the group can kind of like collectively talk about that, and we'll just observe and see what people come up with. That's another different way of actually conducting this kind of research that I think is can be effective as well. So some of the things that we currently have, we actually have a website, which is education.phuse.eu. And it's hosted on Squarespace. We actually have put some content out there. If you go there right now, the data engineering section is actually quite good. The design thinking one is a little sparse. The machine learning AI section that was there, as Kevin had mentioned before, that working group actually, or that project actually got moved over to the emerging trends and technologies working group and was replaced by the data science working group. So this is an old picture that I need to update. And then we have the working group below. There's some other educational components on there around standard scripts that is, I think, still to be built out, but there's a space there for that. So this is one way that we are actually using to convey some of the information that we have. And so, if you do plan on attending the workshop, and before you come to the workshop, if you can actually go to the website and check it out, maybe take some notes, things that you like, things you don't like, things like that. That would actually be very good for us in the workshop to hear and get feedback from you, from people who have actually looked at it. And who should attend with this? Who should attend this workshop, right? Anybody with an interest in learning, right? And so the whole point of this working group is really around expanding people's minds, helping you learn new things. We want to be very mindful of the fact that we are not really a college or university or anything like that, so we don't have classroom trainings or anything like that. We really are focused on being a like a self-service mechanism. So if you are a person who is interested in data science, for example, how exactly can we provide the resources to you to go out and learn about data science broadly? So whether it's through online courses or books that you can read, or in-person courses that you can attend, things like that, we really want to start curating a lot of that content and then offering it up to people in the best way that they can go out and kind of self-learn on their own. We're also interested in people with opinions, right? So I'm not saying to be a jerk or anything like that, but if you have a lot of opinions about these kind of things, feel free to come in and let us know what you think. I think any feedback is actually good feedback here, and it'll be combined with all the other people in the group, and hopefully we can come to some kind of broad understanding of what people need. And then also, I think people who have an interest in actually joining the working group should join it. So if you're interested in something like design thinking, or you're interested in data engineering or data science, I would say, come in and actually start talking with some of the working group members and forming those relationships that Lillian had talked about previously. And you can actually start to build up some of your connections in the space, and maybe start contributing to some of the working groups. And I think this would be a good entry point to do that. And that's it for me. I guess I'm last, so I'll hand it back over to Lauren.
Thank you, Ian. Yep, so as Scott said at the beginning of the webinar, registration for the workshops is now open. So do visit the PhUSE website on instructions how to register for these. Our next webinar is on the 22nd of May, and I'll be sending the agenda out in the next couple of weeks or so. So I'd like to thank you all for joining and wish you all a wonderful day.
Thank you.